Jake Morrison walked through the long metal hallways of Nexus Prime Station. His boots made soft clicking sounds on the polished floor. The human commander had been to many alien stations before, but this one always made him feel small. The walls stretched up so high he could barely see the ceiling. Everything was built for creatures much larger than humans. Today was different, though. Today, Jake carried information that could save billions of lives. He just had to make the alien council listen to him. That was going to be the hard part. The council chamber was huge. Representatives from over 800 different alien species sat in curved rows that went up and up like a giant bowl. Some aliens looked like giant insects. Others were made of what seemed like living crystal. A few floated in tanks of strange-colored gas. Jake had seen them all before, but it still amazed him how different life could be. Jake took his place at the speaking platform in the center of the room. Dr. Lisa Carter stood beside him, holding a small device that would show pictures and videos. Lisa was one of the smartest people Jake knew. If anyone could explain the science, it was her. Honored delegates, Jake began. His voice was amplified so everyone could hear. We have discovered something very dangerous. The Zephyrian Empire is building a new kind of weapon. We call it a railgun. Ambassador Veltar of the Crystalline Hegemony stood up. His body looked like it was made of clear glass, but Jake knew it was much stronger than that. When Veltar spoke, his voice sounded like wind chimes. Human Jake Morrison, Veltar said. Your species loves to fight with simple weapons. Guns that shoot metal bullets. We know this about you. But we have energy shields. We have plasma barriers. What can a simple metal bullet do to us? Other aliens in the chamber began making sounds. Some chittered like insects. Others made electronic beeping noises. Jake knew these sounds meant they were laughing at him. They thought he was being silly. Lisa stepped forward and activated her device. A hologram appeared above them showing a test from Earth. In the video, a railgun fired a small metal rod at a target. The rod moved so fast it was just a blur. When it hit the target, the explosion was enormous. This is not a simple bullet, Lisa said. A railgun uses powerful magnets to shoot objects very, very fast. The metal rod in this test was moving at 30,000 meters per second. When something moves that fast, it hits with incredible force. General Crixthon of the Vorthak military made the clicking sound that meant laughter. He was a tall alien that looked like a praying mantis, but much bigger and covered in armor-like skin. Impossible, General Crixthon said. Our shields can stop plasma blasts that could destroy your moon. These railguns are just toys for a primitive species that never learned better ways to fight. Jake felt his anger rising, but he kept his voice calm. He remembered the lessons humanity had learned the hard way. During the colonial wars on Earth, railguns had changed everything. Cities protected by the best energy shields had been destroyed in seconds. We are not trying to scare you, Jake said. We are trying to help you. The math is simple. When something heavy moves very fast, it carries enormous energy. At the speeds we are talking about, even a small rock becomes as powerful as a nuclear bomb. Lisa changed the hologram to show mathematical equations. Numbers and symbols floated in the air above them. Most of the aliens looked bored. The formula is basic physics, Lisa explained. Kinetic energy equals 1/2 times mass times velocity squared. If you double the speed, you get 4 times the energy. If you make something go 10 times faster, it has 100 times more power. The Zephyrians are building something that can shoot objects at incredible speeds. Ambassador Veltar waved one of his crystal arms. Dr. Lisa Carter, we appreciate your concern. But our technology is far beyond what humans understand. Our adaptive shields can change to stop any attack. They learn and adjust in real time, Jake wanted to scream. These aliens were so sure their technology was perfect. They could not see the danger coming. It was like watching someone walk toward a cliff with their eyes closed. Please, Jake said, let us share our defensive systems with you. We know how to stop railgun attacks. We learned because we had to. Our people died learning these lessons. You do not have to make the same mistakes. A young alien near the back of the chamber stood up. She looked almost human, but her skin was pale blue and her eyes were much larger. Jake recognized her as Zara Moonwhisper from the Altarian delegation. The Altarians were one of the newer species in the council. What kind of defenses work against these railgun weapons? Zara asked. Her voice was soft but clear. Lisa smiled. This was the first real question they had been asked. Kinetic barriers, she said. Instead of trying to deflect the projectile, you absorb its energy. Multiple layers of special armor that can spread the impact force over a wide area. It is like catching a baseball with a net instead of a solid wall. Ridiculous, said another alien. This one looked like a floating jellyfish made of light. Such primitive thinking. Armor is for species that have not discovered proper energy manipulation. The debate went on for hours. Jake and Lisa showed more videos, more data, more proof. They explained how railguns worked. They showed the math that proved how dangerous they could be. They offered to share human technology for free. Most of the aliens just laughed or ignored them. They were too proud of their advanced technology to listen to warnings from humans. After all, humans were still a young species. What could they know that older, wiser civilizations did not? Finally, the vote was called. The results were announced in a dozen different alien languages at the same time. Jake did not need a translation. He could tell by the sounds and colors and movements around the chamber. Species voted to dismiss the human warning. Only 3 voted to take it seriously. Zara Moonwhisper and 2 other small species believed the humans might be right. As the council session ended, Jake felt a heavy sadness in his chest. He had done everything he could. He had shown them the truth. But pride and arrogance had made them blind to the danger. Veltar approached Jake as the chamber emptied. Human Jake Morrison, do not feel bad. Your species will learn that there are better ways than violence. Perhaps in a few thousand years you will discover more civilized methods of resolving conflicts. Jake looked at the crystal alien. Ambassador, I hope you are right. I hope we are wrong about this threat. But if we are not, please remember that we tried to warn you. As Jake and Lisa left Nexus Prime, they both knew the same thing. Somewhere out there, the Zephyrians were building their weapon, and when they used it, the galaxy would learn a terrible lesson about the power of simple physics. Captain Ryan Mitchell stared at the dark view screen of his ship, the Silent Arrow. For 3 weeks, they had been floating in empty space near the edge of Zephyrian territory. The ship was running on minimal power to avoid detection. Every system that might give off energy was shut down. Ryan was tired. His crew was tired. But they had a job to do. Intelligence reports suggested the Zephyrians were building something big on the industrial moon called Kethvar. Admiral Harper wanted to know what it was. Captain, whispered Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from her station. I'm picking up something on passive sensors. Ryan moved to look over her shoulder. Amy was their best sensor operator. If she found something, it was worth investigating. The screen showed a distant moon covered with construction activity. What am I looking at? Ryan asked quietly. Even though they were millions of kilometers away, he kept his voice low. Space had a way of making you feel like someone might be listening. Massive construction project, sir. The entire surface of that moon is covered with building activity. Look at the power readings. Chief Engineer Pete Sullivan joined them at the sensor station. Pete had been working on ships for 20 years. He knew how much power different things needed. Holy... Pete stopped himself from cursing. Sir, those power levels are off the charts. Whatever they're building needs more electricity than some entire star systems use. Ryan studied the readings. The numbers did not make sense. No normal construction project would need that much power. No factory or shipyard required energy on this scale. Amy, can you get us a closer look without being detected? I can try, sir. If we drift closer using only maneuvering thrusters, we might be able to get detailed scans. For the next 6 hours, the Silent Arrow crept through space like a hunting cat. They moved so slowly that anyone watching would think they were just another piece of space debris. Finally, they got close enough for detailed scans. What they saw made everyone on the bridge go quiet. The moon's surface was covered with enormous metal rings. Each ring was kilometers across and made of some kind of magnetic coil. The rings were arranged in a long line that stretched across hundreds of kilometers. At one end was a massive power station that looked like it could supply energy to an entire planet. Pete, Ryan said slowly, please tell me that's not what I think it is. Pete was running calculations on his computer. His face was getting paler by the minute. Captain, based on the size of those magnetic coils and the power requirements, that's a railgun. A really, really big railgun. Amy looked confused. But sir, it's huge. Why would they build something so massive just to shoot projectiles? Ryan remembered his training at the academy. Human military history was required learning for all officers. Because size matters with railguns, Amy. The bigger the magnetic coils, the faster you can accelerate the projectile. The faster it goes, the more damage it does. Pete finished his calculations and showed them to Ryan. The numbers were frightening. Sir, if my math is right, This thing could accelerate a projectile to maybe 20 or 30% of light speed. At those velocities, even a small object would hit with the force of a planet-killer asteroid. Ryan immediately opened a secure communication channel to Earth. The message would take hours to reach Admiral Harper, but she needed to know about this immediately. "Admiral Harper," Ryan recorded, "we have visual confirmation of Zephyrian weapon construction on Kethvar Moon. It appears to be a massive railgun installation, possibly planet-killer class, requesting immediate orders." While they waited for a reply, the crew of the Silent Arrow continued to watch the construction. Thousands of Zephyrian workers moved around the site like ants. Huge ships brought in materials and equipment. The aliens were working around the clock to finish their project. "How long until it's operational?" Ryan asked Pete. "Based on the construction progress, maybe 2 months. They're not even trying to hide what they're building. I guess they figure nobody in the galaxy knows what a railgun looks like." Amy shook her head. "Or nobody believes railguns are dangerous. Remember the council meeting? All those aliens laughed at Commander Morrison." Ryan felt a cold feeling in his stomach. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations had ignored humanity's warning. Now the Zephyrians were building the exact weapon humans had tried to warn everyone about. Admiral Harper's reply came back 18 hours later. Her face on the communication screen looked grim and determined. "Captain Mitchell, prepare a complete intelligence package. Full technical specifications, construction timeline, estimated capabilities. The Galactic Council needs to see this evidence." "Admiral, respectfully, they didn't listen to us before." "Why would they listen now?" "Because this time we have proof, Ryan. Hard evidence of what the Zephyrians are building. Maybe visual confirmation will make them take the threat seriously." Ryan and his crew spent the next 3 days gathering every piece of information they could. They recorded video of the construction. They measured the power systems. They calculated the weapon's probable range and destructive capability. The intelligence package was transmitted to both Earth and Nexus Prime Station. Within days, the Galactic Council reviewed the human evidence. Their response was exactly what Ryan had feared. Chief Science Advisor Morden of the Ethereal Collective issued an official statement. "The construction project on Kethvar appears to be a mining operation, or perhaps a primitive cargo launcher. The humans' interpretation of this facility as a weapon system reflects their species' unfortunate tendency to see military threats where none exist." Only one delegation took the warning seriously. Zara Moonwhisper of the Altarian Council quietly contacted human representatives. She wanted technical specifications for kinetic barrier systems. Her people were going to start building defenses, just in case the humans were right. Back on the Silent Arrow, Ryan received new orders from Admiral Harper. They were to maintain surveillance of Kethvar and report any changes in the construction timeline. "Pete, what's your best estimate for completion?" Ryan asked. 6 weeks, maybe 7. "They're bringing in the final components now. Those look like targeting systems and fire control computers." Amy looked up from her sensor station. "Sir, I'm detecting test firings. Small ones, just checking the systems. But the energy readings are consistent with successful railgun operations." Ryan nodded grimly. The Zephyrians were almost ready. Soon they would have a weapon capable of destroying entire worlds, and nobody in the galaxy believed they were building it. "Continue monitoring," Ryan ordered, "and send daily reports to Earth Command. When that thing goes online, we need to know immediately." As the days passed, Ryan watched the weapon take its final shape. The massive railgun stretched across the surface of Kethvar like a metal mountain range. Test firing became more frequent. Each test shot sent energy readings that made the Silent Arrow's sensors overload. 1 week, sir," Pete reported during the final phase of construction. "Maybe less." Ryan sent his final warning to Earth Command. "Admiral, the Kethvar facility is nearly operational. Recommend immediate action to alert all inhabited systems. The Zephyrians will be able to target any world in this galactic arm." The response from Admiral Harper was brief but clear. "Continue surveillance. Document everything. The galaxy chose not to listen to our warnings. Now we can only watch and be ready to help pick up the pieces." Ryan understood. Humanity had done everything possible to prevent this disaster. They had warned the Council. They had offered to share defensive technology. They had provided concrete evidence of the threat. The galaxy had chosen not to believe them. Soon that choice would have terrible consequences. On Kethvar Moon, the great railgun powered up for its final tests. Energy coursed through magnetic coils kilometers wide. Targeting systems locked onto distant stars, calculating trajectories across interstellar space. The weapon was ready. The Zephyrians had built themselves a planet killer, and nobody in the galaxy except the humans knew what was coming. Ambassador Veltar was reviewing trade agreements when the alarm started, the crystal being looked up from his work desk in the orbital defense station above Veltara Prime. His homeworld sparkled below like a jewel made of living light. Beautiful crystal cities floated in the clouds, connected by bridges that looked like rainbows. "What is the nature of the alert?" Veltar asked the duty officer. Commander Zixel, a younger member of the crystalline hegemony, checked his displays. "Unknown object detected on approach vector. Long-range sensors show metallic composition, small size." Veltar was not worried. The orbital defense station was protected by the most advanced shields in the galaxy. Their adaptive barrier system could stop any weapon the galaxy had ever seen. Plasma cannons, particle beams, fusion torpedoes. Nothing could get through their defenses. "Distance and velocity?" Veltar asked, more curious than concerned. "Distance 8 million kilometers and closing. Velocity?" Jigsaw paused and checked his readings again. "Sir, that cannot be correct." "What is the reading?" 73,000 kilometers per second. And still accelerating. Veltar felt a strange sensation in his crystal matrix. It was something like what humans might call fear, but his species rarely experienced such emotions. "Confirm that reading." "Confirmed, sir." "Object is now at 81,000 kilometers per second. Impact in 47 seconds. Other officers in the command center began to notice the activity. Defense Coordinator Kelmira floated over to examine the sensor data. Her crystal body shifted colors as she processed the information. "Activate all defensive systems," Kelmira ordered. "Full power to adaptive shields." The orbital station hummed as massive energy generators came online. Around Veltara Prime, dozens of shield projectors created overlapping barriers of pure energy. The planet disappeared behind layers of protective force fields that could deflect anything. 30 seconds to impact, Zixal reported. Object velocity now at 92,000 kilometers per second. Veltar suddenly remembered the human warning from months ago. Something about railguns and kinetic energy. He had dismissed it as primitive thinking from a young species. But the numbers his officer was reading matched what the humans had described. 20 seconds. Velocity holding steady at 94,000 kilometers per second. "Can our shields stop it?" Veltar asked. Kelmira's crystals flickered with uncertainty. "Our shields can deflect any energy weapon. This is just a piece of metal. Of course they can stop it." 10 seconds to impact. Veltar watched the main display screen. The approaching object was too small to see, but the computer showed its trajectory as a red line pointing straight at his homeworld. In a few seconds, they would find out if the humans had been right to worry. 5 seconds, 4, 3, 2, 1. What happened next took place in less time than it takes to blink. The tungsten projectile, no larger than a small ship but moving at 24% of light speed, struck the first layer of shields. The adaptive barriers designed to interact with energy weapons over microseconds simply did not have time to react. The projectile passed through the energy fields like they were not even there. It hit the second layer of shields. Same result. Third layer. Fourth, fifth. In the space between one heartbeat and the next, the railgun projectile punched through every defensive barrier around Veltara Prime. The shields that had taken centuries to develop, that represented the pinnacle of crystalline technology, might as well have been made of air. The projectile struck the planet's surface with the kinetic energy of a small star. Veltar's last thought before the command station vaporized was that the humans had tried to warn them. The mathematical formula Lisa Carter had shown them flashed through his mind. Kinetic energy equals 1/2 times mass times velocity squared. At 94,000 kilometers per second, a 12-ton tungsten rod carried the destructive power of a stellar explosion. The impact crater formed in the first microsecond. Veltara Prime's crust cracked like an eggshell as shockwaves traveled around the planet faster than sound. The beautiful crystal cities, some of which had stood for millions of years, shattered into glittering dust. Continents split apart. Oceans boiled away into space. The planet's core, exposed to vacuum, began to expand explosively. Within minutes, Veltara Prime transformed from a garden world into an expanding cloud of molten debris. 4 billion members of the crystalline hegemony died, before they even knew they were under attack. The news traveled through quantum communication networks at the speed of light. Emergency broadcasts reached every inhabited system in the galaxy within hours. The impossible had happened. An entire planet had been destroyed by a single projectile. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. But this time, the human delegation participated by hologram from Earth. Jake Morrison was not about to risk traveling while the Zephyrian railgun was still operational. "Honored delegates," Jake said, his voice heavy with sadness. "We have analyzed the attack on Veltara Prime. The Zephyrians used approximately 40% of their weapon's maximum power. The projectile massed roughly 12 tons and achieved 24% light speed at impact. The council chamber was unusually quiet. Representatives who had laughed at human warnings just months ago now listened with terrified attention. General Crixthon of the Vorthak Confederation stood slowly. The insect-like warrior's usual aggressive posture was gone. "Commander Morrison, our military analysts confirm your species assessment. Our own defensive systems. They would be equally useless against such an attack." Dr. Lisa Carter appeared on the hologram beside Jake. "The problem is reaction time," she explained. "Energy shields work by interacting with incoming attacks. They need time to analyze the threat and respond appropriately. But at relativistic speeds, there is no time. The projectile hits before the shields can even detect it properly." "How is this possible?" asked Morden of the Ethereal Collective. His usually arrogant tone was replaced by something like panic. "Our technology should be superior to simple kinetic weapons." "Technology is not the issue," Jake replied. "Physics is the issue. The laws of the universe do not care how advanced your civilization is. At sufficient velocity, any object becomes a planet killer. This is basic science that cannot be overcome by better computers or more sophisticated energy fields." Young Zara Moonwhisper spoke from the Altarian section of the chamber. Her pale blue face was marked with grief, but her voice was steady. "What can be done to defend against future attacks?" Lisa activated a display showing human defensive designs. "Kinetic barriers. Multiple layers of dense material designed to absorb and dissipate kinetic energy, rather than deflect it. The key is spreading the impact force over time and distance." "But such defenses would be primitive," protested another delegate. "Actual physical armor instead of energy shields. It would be like going backward in our technological development." Jake's expression hardened. Ambassador Veltara Prime had the most advanced shields in the galaxy. 4 billion people trusted those shields with their lives. How did that work out? The chamber fell silent. The harsh truth was unavoidable. All their advanced technology, all their pride in superior energy weapons and sophisticated defenses, had proven useless against simple physics applied with sufficient force. "The Zephyrians have sent a message to all galactic governments," reported the Council's intelligence coordinator. "They demand total surrender within 72 hours. Any species that refuses will suffer the same fate as Veltara Prime." Panic spread through the chamber like wildfire. Representatives began shouting in dozens of different languages. Some demanded immediate military action. Others called for surrender. A few suggested fleeing to distant galaxies where the Zephyrian weapon could not reach them. Jake watched the chaos with sad understanding. The galaxy was learning what humanity had known for centuries. Sometimes the simplest weapons are the most deadly. Sometimes primitive technology wins because it follows laws that cannot be changed or improved upon. "We will help any species that wants to build kinetic defenses," Jake announced over the noise. "We will share our technology freely. But understand this, the time for debate is over. The Zephyrians have proven what railguns can do. Either you prepare to defend yourselves or you prepare to die." As the emergency session dissolved into frightened chaos, Jake closed the communication link from Earth. He turned to his staff with grim determination. "Admiral Harper wants a full strategic assessment," he told Lisa. "How many more shots can that railgun fire? How fast can they target new worlds? And most importantly, what can we do to stop them?" Lisa was already working on the calculations. Based on the power requirements, they need at least 48 hours to recharge for another shot. "But Jake, if they can destroy one planet every 2 days..." She did not need to finish the sentence. "At that rate, the Zephyrians could wipe out every major world in the galaxy within a few months. Unless someone found a way to stop them, the question was whether the galaxy species could overcome their pride and arrogance in time to save themselves. Emperor Zef stood in the command center of his flagship, watching the screens that showed the destruction of Veltara Prime. The debris field that had once been a beautiful world sparkled in the light of its star. The Emperor's segmented carapace gleamed with satisfaction. "Excellent work," he told his weapons coordinator. "The demonstration was even more effective than our calculations predicted." General Vexithara, his military commander, bowed low. "The galaxy trembles before our power, my Emperor. Several species have already sent surrender messages. And the others? They are mobilizing their fleets, my lord. Traditional warships with energy weapons and plasma shields. They do not understand that such technology is now obsolete." Zephykorath made the clicking sound that was laughter among his people. "Let them come. Their ships cannot even get close to our railgun installation, and if they somehow manage to threaten us, we can simply destroy their homeworlds one by one." The Emperor activated the galaxy-wide communication system. Every inhabited planet, every space station, every ship with a receiver would hear his message. Lesser species. His voice was translated into hundreds of languages simultaneously. "You have witnessed the dawn of a new age. The age of Zephyrian dominance. Your advanced shields, your energy weapons, your proud civilizations, all are meaningless before the power of pure physics." He paused to let the words sink in across thousands of star systems. "You have 72 hours to submit to Zephyrian rule. Send your unconditional surrender to our embassy stations. Those who comply will be allowed to exist as subjects of our empire. Those who resist will join the debris field that was once Veltara Prime." The response across the galaxy was immediate and chaotic. On the water world of Aquatica, the Merdian government voted to surrender within hours. Their beautiful underwater cities were too fragile to survive even a small railgun impact. The ocean world's leaders had no choice but to submit. The insectoid hive clusters also capitulated quickly. Their collective consciousness calculated the odds of survival and found them unacceptable. Better to serve the Zephyrians than to face extinction. But other species were made of stronger stuff. General Crixthon of the Vorthak Confederation stood before his war council, with his mantis-like head held high. "We will not kneel to anyone," he declared. "Ready all fleets for immediate deployment. We die fighting or not at all." The machine intelligence known as Core Prime sent encrypted messages to its robot fleets scattered across 50 star systems. Analysis complete. Zephyrian weapon represents existential threat. All units converge on Kethvar system. Destruction of railgun facility takes priority over self-preservation. On Earth, Admiral Kate Harper worked in the deep underground command center beneath the Colorado mountains. Banks of screens showed intelligence data streaming in from across human space. "Status report," Kate demanded as her staff worked frantically around her. Colonel Dan Brooks provided updates from the industrial sectors. "Luna Station's emergency railgun facility will be operational in 18 hours. Mars shipyards have suspended all civilian projects. Every available resource is being diverted to kinetic weapon construction. What about the asteroid mining platforms? We're retrofitting their mass drivers for military use. They're not as powerful as dedicated weapons, but at least they can fire kinetic projectiles. Better than nothing." Captain Ryan Mitchell appeared on the main screen, transmitting from his position near Kethvar. "Admiral, the Zephyrians are repositioning their weapon. New targeting vector suggests they're aiming for the Vorthak homeworld. Estimated time to firing position is 46 hours. Kate made the decision that would define humanity's role in galactic history. Earth had stayed neutral in most alien conflicts, preferring to trade and explore rather than fight. But this was different. If the Zephyrians were not stopped, they would eventually come for Earth too. "Operation Sledgehammer is approved," Kate announced. "All available human forces will target the Kethvar facility. We cannot save Veltara Prime, but maybe we can prevent a second planet from dying." Her staff looked uncertain. Fighting an alien empire was a big step for humanity. Earth had weapons, but they had never used them in a major interstellar war. "Admiral," Colonel Brooks said carefully, "are we sure about this? The Zephyrians have not threatened Earth directly. Dan, they have a weapon that can destroy planets from across the galaxy. Do you really think they will stop with the species that surrender? Once they control everything else, what is to stop them from targeting us next?" The logic was unavoidable. Humanity had two choices: fight now while they had allies, or fight later when they stood alone. Meanwhile, young Zara Moonwhisper worked desperately in her laboratory on the Altarian homeworld. Her pale blue hands moved quickly over holographic displays, showing gravitational field equations. She had been working for 36 hours straight, surviving on stimulants and determination. "Computer, run simulation 47, she commanded. The lab's artificial intelligence projected a test scenario. A railgun projectile approached a theoretical target protected by Zara's new defensive system. Gravitational lenses bent space-time itself, deflecting the projectile's path by fractions of degrees. At normal speeds, such a small deflection would be meaningless. But at relativistic velocities, tiny changes in trajectory resulted in huge misses. A projectile bent just 1 degree off course would miss its target by millions of kilometers. Success probability 84%, the computer reported. Gravitational lens array successfully deflects incoming projectile. Zara collapsed in her chair, exhausted but triumphant. She had done it. Her combination of human kinetic, barrier technology with Altarian gravitational manipulation could stop Railgun attacks. Now she just had to build the system. Before the Zephyrians destroyed her homeworld. Across the galaxy, the great powers prepared for war in their own ways. The Vorthak Confederation launched every warship they had. Thousands of vessels armed with plasma cannons and protected by energy shields raced towards Zephyrian space. General Crixthon knew their shields were useless against railguns, but he hoped overwhelming numbers might break through to destroy the weapon platform. The mechanical fleets of Core Prime took a different approach. Robot ships equipped with powerful engines and minimal armor planned to ram the railgun installation at high speed. If they could not shoot their way through, they would crash through instead. The ethereal collective tried diplomacy, sending messages offering to negotiate a peaceful solution. Their representatives spoke of compromise and mutual benefit, hoping to avoid the destruction that seemed inevitable. Emperor Zefkarath received all these responses with amusement. "They still do not understand," he told General Vexithara. "They think this is a conventional war that can be won with ships and armies. But we do not need to fight their fleets. We can simply destroy their homeworlds from thousands of light years away. What are your orders, my Emperor? Continue targeting the Vorthak homeworld. When their planet dies, the others will see the futility of resistance. After that, we can take our time conquering the galaxy system by system." The great railgun began its final targeting sequence. Gravitational sensors mapped the exact position of the Vorthak homeworld. Computers calculated the trajectory needed to deliver a tungsten projectile across interstellar space with perfect accuracy. But the Emperor had made one critical mistake. He had dismissed the humans as primitives who understood only simple weapons. He had not bothered to track human ship movements or monitor Earth's military preparations. Admiral Kate Harper was counting on that mistake. "All human forces, prepare for synchronized attack," she broadcast on secure channels. "We get one chance at this. The moment we fire, they will know we are coming. Make every shot count." The human fleet consisted of 47 vessels, from massive battleships to converted cargo haulers. They were outnumbered and outgunned by traditional standards, but they carried weapons that the Zephyrians had helped them understand. Railguns, kinetic kill vehicles. The physics that had destroyed Veltara Prime turned against its creators. In 16 hours, the Battle of Kethvar would begin. The outcome would determine whether the galaxy fell to Zephyrian tyranny or found a way to fight back against the ultimate weapon. As fleets converged on the industrial moon, one thing was certain: the age of energy shields and plasma weapons was over. The universe had entered the age of kinetic warfare, where the oldest law of physics, that things in motion tend to stay in motion, became the most deadly force in the galaxy. Admiral Kate Harper stood on the bridge of the battleship USS Constitution as her fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kethvar system. Through the viewscreen, she could see the industrial moon where the Zephyrian railgun waited like a sleeping monster. "All ships report ready, Admiral," announced Captain Amy Rodriguez, now commanding her own destroyer. She had been promoted after her excellent work on reconnaissance missions. Kate studied the tactical display. 47 human vessels formed a loose sphere around the target. They had approached from different directions to avoid detection, timing their arrival perfectly. In a few minutes, they would either destroy the galaxy's greatest threat or die trying. "Remember the plan," Kate broadcast to the fleet. We fire everything at once from multiple angles. The Zephyrians cannot target all of us simultaneously. Some of our shots will get through. On the moon's surface, the massive railgun installation stretched across hundreds of kilometers. Magnetic coils the size of city blocks focused incredible energy into a single point. At the firing end, targeting computers made final calculations for the shot that would destroy the Vorthak homeworld. Emperor Zeph Korath observed the preparations from his flagship in orbit. He was eager to see another demonstration of his ultimate weapon. The death of Veltara Prime had been satisfying, but the destruction of a military world would send an even stronger message. Charging sequence at 90%, reported the weapons coordinator. Ready to fire in 4 minutes. Excellent. The Vorthak will learn what happens to species who defy the Zephyrian Empire. That was when the human attack began. Kate gave the order that changed galactic history. All ships, open fire. From 47 different positions, Railguns launched their deadly projectiles toward Kethvar. The human fleet had smaller weapons than the Zephyrian installation, but they had advantages of their own. Speed, surprise, and multiple targeting angles. Tungsten rods accelerated by magnetic fields raced through space at incredible velocities. Some moved at 10% of light speed. Others reached 15 or even 20%. The fastest projectiles would arrive first, followed by waves of slower but equally deadly shots. Enemy vessels detected, shouted a Zephyrian sensor operator. Multiple contacts firing kinetic weapons. General Vexathera spun to face the tactical displays. Dozens of red dots showed incoming projectiles from all directions. Impossible. How did they get so close without detection? They are human ships, reported the intelligence officer. Their stealth technology is more advanced than our estimates suggested. Emperor Zeph Korath felt something he had not experienced in decades. Surprise. The primitive humans had managed to coordinate a complex attack on his most important installation. It was almost impressive. How long until impact? He demanded. First projectiles will arrive in 18 seconds. Multiple waves following. Activate defensive systems. All shield generators to maximum power. But the Emperor had forgotten the same lesson that had killed 4 billion people on Veltara Prime. Energy. Shields were useless against relativistic kinetic weapons. The first human projectile struck the railgun, installation at 12% of light speed. The tungsten rod, no bigger than a telephone pole, punched through the energy barriers like they were made of paper. It hit one of the massive magnetic coils, and the kinetic energy release shattered a section of the installation that had taken years to build. 3 seconds later, the second projectile arrived, then the third. Then a dozen more in rapid succession. Captain Amy Rodriguez watched from her destroyer as explosions bloomed across the moon's surface. Direct hits on primary target, multiple secondary explosions detected. The human plan was working perfectly. Instead of one massive shot like the Zephyrians used, they had fired dozens of smaller projectiles in waves. Even if some missed or were deflected, others would get through. Wave 2 impact in 15 seconds, reported her weapons officer. Chief Engineer Pete Sullivan, now commanding a converted cargo hauler, watched his improvised railgun recharge for a second shot. His ship was not built for war, but it carried mining equipment that could launch objects at high speed. Ready for second volley, he reported to Admiral Harper. All ships, fire at will. Keep hitting them until nothing is left. The second wave of projectiles arrived while the Zephyrians were still trying to understand what was happening to them. More explosions ripped through the railgun installation. Critical power systems failed. Targeting computers went offline. Emperor Zeph Korath watched his ultimate weapon die with growing rage and disbelief. How are they doing this? Their weapons are smaller than ours. General Vexathara studied the damage reports. My Emperor, they are using multiple simultaneous impacts. Our shields can handle 1 or 2 projectiles, but not dozens arriving from different angles within seconds of each other. Then target their ships. Destroy them! But the great railgun could only point in one direction, toward the Vorthak homeworld. It would take hours to redirect such a massive weapon toward the human fleet. Hours they did not have. The third wave of human projectiles finished the job. Multiple tungsten rods struck the main power generator, the central firing chamber, and the primary targeting array. The railgun that had taken 5 years to build was reduced to twisted metal and smoking craters in less than 2 minutes. Kate watched the destruction with grim satisfaction.
All ships, cease fire.
Target destroyed. Across the human fleet, crews cheered and celebrated. They had done the impossible, destroyed a planet-killer weapon with a coordinated kinetic attack. But their celebration was cut short by new sensor readings. "Admiral," Captain Rodriguez reported. "Zephyrian fleet approaching. Over 300 vessels, all heading our direction." Kate nodded. She had expected this. Emperor Zefkarath would not let the destruction of his superweapon go unanswered. "All ships prepare for conventional engagement." They cannot destroy planets anymore, but they still have plasma weapons and energy shields. The Battle of Kethvar entered its second phase as the Zephyrian fleet arrived to find their ultimate weapon in ruins. Emperor Zefkarath commanded the attack personally, his flagship leading the charge against the human forces. "Destroy them all," he ordered. "Make them pay for what they have done." What followed was a traditional space battle between energy weapons and kinetic systems. The Zephyrians had superior numbers and firepower. Their plasma cannons could vaporize human ships with direct hits. Their shields could deflect most conventional weapons, but the humans had learned valuable lessons from their own violent history. They used superior tactics, better coordination, and weapons designed specifically to defeat energy shields. Captain Ryan Mitchell, commanding a fast attack cruiser, led a squadron against the Emperor's flagship. Focus fire on their shield generators. Kinetic weapons punch through better when the shields are overloaded. The human ships moved like a pack of wolves, concentrating their fire on individual targets, while avoiding the massed firepower of the Zephyrian fleet. It was dangerous work. Several human vessels were destroyed by plasma fire, but their tactics were working. Admiral Harper watched the battle from the Constitution's command bridge. "Pete, how are our ammunition supplies?" "Running low, Admiral. We expended most of our projectiles in the initial attack on the railgun. Then we need to finish this quickly." Kate made a decision that would be studied in military academies for centuries. Instead of continuing the long-range battle, she ordered her entire fleet to close to point-blank range with the enemy. "All ships, maximum acceleration toward the Zephyrian fleet. Prepare for ramming speed." Her captains understood immediately. At close range, railguns became even more deadly. Energy shields were less effective when projectiles had less time to be deflected. And if necessary, human ships could ram their targets rather than let the Zephyrians escape. The final phase of the battle was brutal and decisive. Human vessels charged through plasma fire, taking heavy losses but getting close enough for their railguns to punch through Zephyrian shields at point-blank range. Emperor Zefkarath watched his fleet crumble around him. Ship after ship fell to human kinetic weapons. His energy shields, the pride of Zephyrian technology, proved as useless in close combat as they had been against the railgun installation. "How can this be happening?" he demanded. "We have superior technology." General Vexithera was working desperately to coordinate the defense. "My Emperor, their kinetic weapons are more effective at close range. They sacrifice their ships to get within our defensive perimeter, then fall back, retreat to safe distance." But it was too late. The human fleet had closed to ramming distance. Several damaged human vessels deliberately crashed into Zephyrian ships, their hulls loaded with railgun projectiles that exploded on impact. In the end, Emperor Zefkarath faced a choice no Zephyrian ruler had ever confronted: surrender or die. His flagship, surrounded by human vessels and taking fire from multiple directions, was doomed. His fleet was scattered and broken. His ultimate weapon lay in ruins on the surface of Kethvar. The Emperor, who had demanded the galaxy's surrender, now found himself in the same position. "This is Admiral Kate Harper of Earth." "Command," came the transmission. "Emperor Zefkarath, you are defeated. Surrender now and your remaining ships will be spared." 3 months after the Battle of Kethvar, Jake Morrison walked through the corridors of Unity Point, humanity's new diplomatic station. The facility orbited Earth's moon and served as the meeting place for what everyone now called the New Galactic Council. Everything had changed since the Zephyrian defeat. Species that had laughed at human warnings now asked for help building kinetic defenses. Civilizations that had considered energy shields the ultimate protection were learning to think in terms of mass, velocity, and kinetic energy. Jake entered the main council chamber, which was much smaller than the Grand Hall on Nexus Prime. Only 50 species attended these meetings regularly. The others were too busy rebuilding their defenses to spend time on politics. Commander Morrison greeted Zara Moonwhisper as he took his seat. The young Altarian had become one of humanity's closest allies, and her gravitational defense systems were now protecting dozens of worlds. "How are the reconstruction efforts proceeding?" "Better than expected," Jake replied. "The crystalline hegemony has almost finished rebuilding their homeworld's defenses. Kinetic barriers instead of energy shields. It's not as elegant as their old technology, but it will stop railgun attacks." General Crixthon of the Vorthak Confederation joined their conversation. The proud warrior had been humbled by humanity's victory, but he had learned from it. "My people have completed construction of our new orbital fortresses. Multiple layers of dense armor with kinetic energy absorption systems. Your Dr. Lisa Carter's designs are quite effective." Jake nodded. Lisa had become the galaxy's leading expert on kinetic warfare defense. She spent her time traveling from system to system, teaching alien engineers how to build barriers that could stop relativistic projectiles. "What about the Zephyrian territories?" Zara asked. "That's more complicated," Jake admitted. "Emperor Zefkarath is dead, but his empire is fragmenting. Some systems want to join the new defensive alliance. Others are trying to rebuild railgun weapons." This was the new reality facing the galaxy. The technology for kinetic weapons was relatively simple once you understood the principles. Any civilization with magnetic field generators and sufficient power could build railguns. The challenge was preventing another arms race that could destroy entire star systems. Admiral Kate Harper appeared on the chamber's main screen, transmitting from Earth Command. "Sorry I cannot attend in person," she said, "but I have important news about our monitoring efforts." Kate had been promoted to head of Galactic Defense Coordination, a new human-led organization that tracked weapons development across known space. It was a huge responsibility, but Kate had proven she could handle difficult situations. "We have detected 3 separate attempts to build new railgun installations," Kate reported. 2 have been stopped by diplomatic pressure. The 3rd required military intervention. This was the new role humanity had taken on somewhat reluctantly. As the species that best understood kinetic warfare, humans had become the galaxy's policemen for planet-killer weapons. It was not a job they had wanted, but someone had to do it. "Any word from the Ethereal Collective?" asked a representative from the Meridian government. The Waterworld species had become strong supporters of the new defensive alliance. Jake's expression darkened. "They are still trying to develop what they call advanced kinetic deflection systems. Basically, they want to build better energy shields instead of learning proper kinetic barriers." This was a common problem. Many species found it difficult to accept that their advanced technology was inferior to simple armor plating. Pride made them search for complicated solutions to what was fundamentally a simple physics problem. "Have they tested their new shields?" Zara asked. "Yes, we provided them with captured Zephyrian projectiles for testing purposes. Their shields failed completely, just like we predicted, but they keep insisting there must be a way to make energy barriers work against kinetic weapons. Some things never changed. Even after seeing Veltara Prime destroyed, some species still believed their technology could overcome basic physics. They would rather risk extinction than admit humans might know something they did not." Dr. Lisa Carter appeared on another communication screen, calling in from the Altarian homeworld where she was installing new defense systems. "Jake, I have updates on the gravitational lens project." "Good news, I hope?" "Very good. Zara's gravitational deflection system has been tested successfully against full-power railgun attacks. The system can bend space-time enough to deflect projectiles traveling at up to 30% of light speed. This was a breakthrough that could change everything. If gravitational lenses could reliably deflect kinetic weapons, it would provide an alternative to massive armor barriers. More importantly, it proved that advanced technology could work against railguns, as long as it was based on sound physics instead of wishful thinking." "How expensive is the system to build?" asked General Crixthon. Zara answered from her position in the council. "Very expensive. The gravitational generators require exotic matter that is difficult to produce. Most systems can afford to protect their homeworld and maybe 1 or 2 major colonies. For full coverage, kinetic barriers are still more practical." Jake understood the implications. The galaxy was developing a 2-tier defense system. Wealthy core worlds would get gravitational deflectors, while frontier systems would rely on armor barriers. It was not perfect, but it was better than the helplessness they had faced during the Zephyrian crisis. "What about offensive capabilities?" asked another delegate. This was always a sensitive topic. Admiral Harper handled the question carefully. "Earth Command maintains a fleet of kinetic-capable vessels for enforcement purposes, but we have strict protocols about their use. Railguns are only deployed against unauthorized planet-killer weapons or in defense of Alliance members." The delegates nodded. Everyone understood that humans now possessed the galaxy's most powerful weapons. But so far, humanity had used that power responsibly. They had stopped 3 attempts to build illegal railguns without destroying any inhabited worlds. "There is another matter we need to discuss," Jake said. "The Nexus Prime situation." The old galactic capital had become a symbol of the failed energy weapon era. Many species wanted to abandon the station and move the Council permanently to Unity Point. Others argued for rebuilding Nexus Prime with proper kinetic defenses. "My vote is for abandonment," said General Crixton. "That place represents everything we got wrong about galactic defense. Better to start fresh." "I disagree," countered the ethereal collective representative. "Nexus Prime has been our capital for thousands of years. We should not throw away history because of one mistake." Zara offered a compromise. "What if we maintained both facilities? Unity Point for military coordination and defensive planning. Nexus Prime for cultural exchange and traditional diplomacy." It was a reasonable solution, and the Council voted to approve it. The galaxy would have 2 capitals, one focused on the new reality of kinetic warfare, and one preserving the traditions of the older civilizations. As the session ended, Jake reflected on how much had changed. 6 months ago, humanity had been junior members of galactic civilization. Now they were leaders in the most important technology of the age. But with leadership came responsibility. Earth's industrial capacity was stretched to its limits, producing railgun projectiles for Allied fleets. Human engineers worked around the clock designing defensive systems for hundreds of different species. Human diplomats mediated disputes between civilizations that had never trusted each other. "It is a heavy burden," Zara observed as they left the council chamber together. "Yes, it is," Jake agreed. "But someone has to carry it. And honestly, I would rather have humans in charge of galactic defense than the Ethereal Collective or the Vorthak Confederation." "Why is that?" Jake paused to look out at Earth through the station's viewport. The blue-green world looked peaceful from this distance, but Jake knew it had been shaped by millions of years of conflict and survival. "Because we understand violence," he said finally. "Most galactic civilizations developed past their violent phase before they achieved interstellar travel. They forgot what war really means. But humans remember. We know how terrible these weapons can be, so we are careful with them." It was true. Humanity's violent history, which had once made them seem primitive to other species, now made them the ideal guardians of galaxy-killing weapons. They knew the cost of war too well to use such power lightly. "The reconstruction efforts will take years," Zara said. "Maybe decades." "Then we had better get started," Jake replied. "The galaxy trusted energy shields for thousands of years. Building trust in kinetic barriers will not happen overnight." As they walked toward the transport station, both of them knew the real work was just beginning. Defeating the Zephyrians had been the easy part. Building a new galactic civilization based on defensive principles instead of offensive dominance would be much harder. But for the first time in galactic history, the most powerful weapons were in the hands of a species that truly understood the responsibility that came with them. 5 years after the Battle of Kethvar, Dr. Lisa Carter stood on the observation deck of the Memorial Station, orbiting what had once been Veltara Prime. The debris field sparkled in the light of the system's star, a permanent reminder of what happened when civilizations ignored the laws of physics. Lisa was older now, with gray streaks in her hair and lines around her eyes from years of working in different gravitational environments. She had spent the last 5 years traveling to hundreds of worlds, teaching alien engineers how to build defenses against kinetic weapons. Today, she was not alone. A group of young cadets from the new Galactic Defense Academy accompanied her, representing dozens of different species. They were here to learn the most important lesson in the galaxy, that pride and arrogance could be more dangerous than any weapon. "Can anyone tell me what happened here?" Lisa asked the group. A young Vorthak cadet raised her claw. "The crystalline hegemony was destroyed by a single railgun projectile fired from the Zephyrian installation on Kethvar." "That is correct. But why did it happen?" The crystallines had the most advanced shields in the galaxy. This time a human cadet answered, because they were designed to stop energy weapons, not kinetic ones. At relativistic speeds, there is no time for the shields to react. Lisa nodded. Energy shields work by interacting with incoming attacks over time. But a projectile moving at 24% of light speed passes through the interaction zone in nanoseconds. The shields simply cannot respond fast enough. She activated a holographic display showing the mathematical principles behind kinetic energy, the same equations that Jake Morrison had tried to explain to the Galactic Council years ago. This is why we study physics before we study weapons, Lisa continued. The universe has laws that cannot be changed by better technology or superior engineering. Kinetic energy equals 1/2 times mass times velocity squared. This formula destroyed Veltara Prime. This formula ended the Zephyrian Empire. And this formula will govern warfare for as long as civilizations exist. An Altarian cadet with the distinctive pale blue skin of her species asked a question. Dr. Carter, why did the humans understand this when older species did not? It was a question Lisa had been asked many times over the past 5 years. The answer was not flattering to most galactic civilizations, but it was the truth. Because humans never stopped fighting, she said simply. Most species in the galaxy achieved peace before they reached the stars. They developed beyond their violent phase and forgot the lessons that violence teaches. But humans carried war with them into space. We never forgot that the simplest weapons can be the most deadly. She changed the display to show images from human history. Ancient battles with spears and arrows, medieval siege weapons, modern firearms and missiles. Each era had brought new technology, but the basic principles remained the same. Every human child learns about kinetic energy in school because we used it to kill each other for thousands of years. We know what happens when you throw rocks or fire bullets or launch missiles. We understand momentum and impact and energy transfer because these concepts decided who lived and who died in our wars. The cadets listened intently. This was not just a history lesson. It was the foundation of their future careers in galactic defense. But the most important lesson, Lisa continued, is not about weapons. It is about listening. Commander Jake Morrison tried to warn the Galactic Council about railguns. He offered to share human defensive technology. He showed them the mathematical proof of the danger. She paused to let the words sink in. The council laughed at him. They dismissed his warnings as primitive thinking from a backward species. 4 billion people died because advanced civilizations were too proud to listen to advice from humans. A young ethereal cadet, his energy form flickering with what might have been shame, spoke up. My people were among those who voted against the human warning. How do we make sure this never happens again? By remembering this place, Lisa answered, gesturing toward the debris field. By studying the mistakes that led to this tragedy, and by understanding that wisdom does not always come from the most advanced technology. Admiral Kate Harper materialized as a hologram beside the group. She was transmitting from Earth Command, where she now coordinated defensive efforts across the galaxy. Dr. Carter, I hope you do not mind the interruption, but I wanted the cadets to hear about our latest intelligence reports. Of course, Admiral. What is the current status? We have successfully prevented 17 attempts to build unauthorized railgun installations over the past year. 3 were stopped by diplomacy. 12 were dismantled under treaty agreements. 2 required military intervention. This was the new reality of galactic politics. The human defense fleet maintained constant patrols, monitoring for signs of planet-killer weapon construction. It was a job that required both technical expertise and diplomatic skill. Any major threats? Asked one of the cadets. Kate's expression grew serious. The Zephyrian remnant is still active. They control about 30 star systems in the Outer Rim, and are trying to rebuild their military capabilities. So far, we have prevented them from constructing any major weapons, but they remain a concern. The former Zephyrian Empire had shattered after Emperor Zephkarath's death. Most systems had joined the new Galactic Defense Alliance, but some hardliners still dreamed of restoring their former power. They were a constant reminder that the lessons of the Railgun War were not universally accepted. How do we deal with species that refuse to abandon planet-killer weapons? Asked the Vorthak cadet. Kate and Lisa exchanged glances. This was always a difficult question to answer. We tried diplomacy first, Kate explained. Economic sanctions, trade restrictions, political pressure. Most species eventually realize that isolation is worse than cooperation. And if diplomacy fails, Then we use the minimum force necessary to eliminate the threat, Kate said firmly. The galaxy has agreed that no one gets to build weapons capable of destroying entire worlds. That agreement is enforced by the human defense fleet and our allies. It was a heavy responsibility, but one that humanity had accepted reluctantly. No one wanted to be the galaxy's police force, but someone had to ensure that another Veltara Prime never happened. Jake Morrison appeared on another hologram channel, calling in from Unity Point where he now served as Director of Galactic Security. His hair was completely gray now and his face showed the weight of his responsibilities. Lisa, Kate, I wanted to update you on the memorial project. How was the response? Lisa asked. Better than expected. We have commitments from over 400 species to contribute to the permanent memorial. The crystalline hegemony survivors want it to include a complete archive of their lost civilization. The memorial was more than just a monument to the dead. It was intended to be a research center where future generations could study the mistakes that led to the Railgun War. Libraries, laboratories, and educational facilities would ensure that the lessons learned from this tragedy were never forgotten. What about the other survivors? Asked one of the cadets. Jake's expression softened. The Veltara refugees have been resettled on New Crystal, a world donated by the Altarian Confederation. It is not the same as their homeworld, but they are rebuilding their civilization there. Their new cities incorporate human-designed kinetic barriers from the ground up. This was perhaps the most important success of the post-war period. Instead of seeking revenge, the survivors of destroyed worlds had chosen to build better defenses. They had learned from their tragedy and were helping to prevent similar disasters. The Zephyrian civilian populations have also been successfully integrated into Alliance territories, Kate added. Most of them rejected their empire's military philosophy after seeing where it led. Not all former enemies had become friends, but enough had chosen cooperation over continued conflict to give hope for the future. Lisa addressed the cadets one final time. You are the first generation to grow up in the post-Railgun galaxy. You will never know what it was like to believe that energy shields made you invulnerable. That is both a blessing and a responsibility. She gestured toward the memorial station where they stood. This place exists because an entire civilization trusted their technology more than they trusted physics. They believed their advanced shields could protect them from anything the universe could throw at them. They were wrong, and 4 billion people paid the price for that mistake. The cadets looked out at the debris field with new understanding. These were not just pretty lights in space. They were the remains of cities, ships, and people who had died because their leaders were too proud to listen to warnings. Your generation will face new threats that we cannot imagine, Lisa continued. New weapons, new challenges, new crises. When that happens, remember this place. Remember that the universe does not care how advanced your civilization is. Physics is the ultimate authority, and it shows no mercy to those who ignore its laws. As the group prepared to leave the memorial station, Zara Moonwhisper joined them via hologram from her laboratory on New Altair. Her gravitational defense systems now protected over 200 worlds, but she continued to research new applications for the technology. Dr. Carter, Zara said, I wanted the cadets to know about our latest